was married to a kind man she'd known her entire life, but in a relationship with no romance. And she and Samuel hadn't been intimate since the day Mattie was conceived. They'd made a few awkward moves toward consummating their marriage, but Lydia had been in the throes of morning sickness. She'd also resented their forced wedding, and that sentiment had carried over to Samuel. Then when her belly began to expand, she'd felt unattractive. And after Mattie was born, her attention was solely on her daughter, and she was also exhausted. Samuel finally stopped trying to rekindle a physical relationship, and they slipped into a kind of companionship, a relationship of convenience, even though they shared a bed. But that wasn't what Lydia believed marriage should be. They'd married only because they'd gone against God, exploring a territory reserved for married couples. Now they were raising a child together, but all they had in common was their love for Mattie. Samuel adored their daughter. Lydia longed for him to feel that way about her, and vice versa. Samuel came home to the farmhouse he and Lydia rented. He was grateful the Yoder's rental property had become available at just the right time, a week before he and Lydia married. It wasn't his dream house, and he hoped to own his own home someday, but it was close to the furniture store. This was the third night in a row to work late. Hopefully they would finish taking inventory tomorrow so he could come home at a normal hour. He missed seeing Mattie before she went to sleep. When he didn't work late, he and Lydia both tucked her into bed, after small talk during supper and their evening devotions. Time with Lydia was often strained and uncomfortable, though. Neither of them knew how to tame the huge elephant in the room, the fact that they still didn't really know each other. It was hard to love a woman when you didn't know her. At least not the way a man should know his wife. Once he'd settled his horse in the barn, he trudged up the front porch steps, then into the house, yawning. After he hung his hat on the rack and kicked off his shoes by the door, he lowered his suspenders. Then he lit the lantern on the hutch before picking it up and walking into the kitchen. He slowed his stride when he saw Lydia sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. Usually by now, she was in bed pretending to be asleep while Samuel slipped into the shower. He slept lightly, but he felt the bed move each night when she got up. A wooden slat in the hallway also groaned right before she stepped into Mattie's room. Most nights he didn't know when she came back to bed or how long she stayed in their daughter's room. But every morning, she was up before he was, cooking breakfast. "Wie bist? Is everything okay? Is the Bopley all right?" He ran his hand the length of his short beard as his pulse picked up. "Are you all right?" "Yeah, we're both fine." His heart rate slowed, but Lydia sounded defeated. Samuel held the light closer to his wife's face. "Have you been crying?" The whites of her eyes were red, and he could see dark circles under her eyes even in the dimly lit room. Mattie cried off and on all day long, even more than she has been. Her bottom lip trembled. "I don't know what I'm doing wrong." Pleading eyes sought comfort from him, which was unusual. Lydia never wept or showed much emotion in front of him. He knew Mattie had cried a lot lately. He'd seen it on weekends, but Lydia rarely commented on it. Maybe she's sick. He set the lantern on the table and sat down across from her. He could smell his supper on a plate atop the stove, but even though his stomach rumbled, concern for his daughter dulled his appetite. He was also eager to comfort his wife. She didn't give him that opportunity very often. Lydia sighed as she blinked back tears. "I've taken her temperature and it's normal. She doesn't seem to have a cough or cold, and she's soiling her diaper in a normal manner." She shrugged as she gazed at him from the other side of the table. His wife was as beautiful today as the day they'd made love in the barn. At least they'd thought it was love. It had seemed the best way to justify their physical longing for each other. "Should you take her to the doctor?" Samuel cut his eyes slightly to the left when a gust of warm wind blew through the open window, sending the aroma of his supper wafting up his nose. Lydia stood, walked to the stove, and returned with the plate of food. She set it in front of him and then took a fork from the drawer and gave it to him. "What would I tell the doctor?" she asked as she sat down again. "That she cries a lot? A mooder should be able to figure out why her Bopley is crying." His wife sounded fragile, and her vulnerability tugged at his heart. He kept his eyes on her as he forked a small